The National Broadcasting Company delays the start of this program to bring you a special bulletin. From the NBC newsroom in New York, it's a general offensive for the UN forces in Korea tonight, with attacks launched all along the beachhead front, from the Mason sector up to and beyond Taegu. All this while Allied landing forces forge a trap behind the Communists on the west coast at Incheon. That amphibious assault to the north is going well. Keep tuned to your NBC station for the later news.
Wanted. Wanted for jailbreak. Presented in the public interest, this is the program that brings you for the first time on the air a nationwide manhunt in action. This is the program that has led to the capture of 3 dangerous criminals. From the record, the on-the-spot reports of the actual people involved. Nothing is withheld. No one is protected. Here are the dramatic eyewitness accounts of a man wanted. Wanted for jailbreak.
And now, Wanted's on-the-spot investigator, Walter McGraw.
Good evening. Once again, you and I are going on a nationwide manhunt for a criminal who is now at large in this country. I'm going to introduce you to the actual people who can give you eyewitness accounts of this man. You'll meet not only the law enforcement officers involved, but the criminal's associates and victims. Remember, the voices you hear are those of the actual people, not actors, and they're putting themselves on the spot to give you their own stories about a man who is wanted. Tonight, we're turning Wanted spotlight on another of the top 10 fugitives of this country. This time, it's a 60-year-old, tricky, case-hardened mobster who spent better than 20 years in various penitentiaries of this country. He's a man who cares little for his own life and much, much less for yours. So listen, these are the facts.
The date, March 17th, 1947. Locale, Bakersfield, California. Fike's Grocery, located in the heart of the business district.
The voices you hear next are the actual voices of the people who, through no fault of their own, are involved in the case of FBI number 15098. First, the owner of a grocery store.
This is John Fike, owner-manager Fike's Finer Foods, Bakersfield, California. On this night, after the customers had all left the store, 3 employees and myself were left in the building. 2 men came up from the rear of the store, looking down the aisles as they walked, as though they were trying to find some particular item. When they got within about 10 feet of the check stand, they pulled out guns, and they kept their guns low, as though they weren't very excited. They took some $800. They ordered us all to the rear of the store, where they put us into a large butter box. Then they asked me to wait for 5 minutes before we left. We waited the 5 minutes, walked out of the refrigerator, and called the police.
This is Lieutenant Albert Meir, Bakersfield Police Department. On receipt of the robbery complaint, officers were dispatched to make the investigation. They soon learned they were looking for a couple of experienced gunmen. First, the job had been well cased. Secondly, the 2 bandits were very cool. Thirdly, they took very little time, made a clean getaway. About the only evidence obtained were the descriptions of the 2 bandits. Number 1 was described as about 30 years, 5'6", slight build, and walked with a slight limp, while number 2 was described as about 50 years, 5'9", heavier build, dark wavy hair, an Indian, and one clerk suggested that he possibly may have been using makeup. The only other bit of information was a car reported seen in the neighborhood.
My name's Don Rodkey. I'm employed at Fike's Market. On the night of the robbery, I left at about 6 o'clock, went out the back of the store and down the alley. I noticed sitting at the curb a car with a man sitting in the front seat. It was a 1939 LaSalle, which caught my eye because there weren't very many made, and it was an unpopular model, especially a black sedan. I thought nothing more of it and went on home. That evening, Mr. Fike called me and told me that the store had been robbed. He asked me if I had noticed anything peculiar around the store. I told him about the car and later notified the police.
This is Detective John M. Toll of the Bakersfield Police Department. While cruising in the downtown area of the city of Bakersfield with my partner, Detective Lacey High, we observed a 1939 black LaSalle sedan occupied by two men driving on one of the main streets. From our notes, we had information that a car of this description had been seen in the vicinity of the robbery of Fikes Market earlier in the evening. As the car passed in front of the police vehicle, the driver kept watching the police car. We decided to follow them and check the car and its occupants. They drove into a local drive-in, and we pulled up alongside and talked to the two men in the car. The man in the right-hand front seat I did not know. The driver of the car I recognized as a man who had been released from the local jail a few days earlier after serving a sentence for minor theft. His name was Sam Scribner.
Sam Scribner, known to the underworld as Stupid Sam.
Sam Scribner was a smallish, pleasant-looking man with a record of petty theft. Small stuff. Only once had he served a major rap, and that was in the federal pen for auto theft. Police were doubtful that this petty crook had cracked the big time, but they pulled him in. No big-time lineup methods were used. Little Sam Scribner sat at a table, and victims of the grocery store theft were asked to identify him. Eye to eye with an armed hold-up artist, eyewitnesses became victims of failing memories. Just plain frightened, they said,
"No, he's not the guy. I don't think."
Bakersfield police had nothing on small-time Sam Scribner, so they released him. But from that time on, Scribner had two faithful followers of the plain-clothes variety, watching, waiting for him to make one false move. He made it. He violated a speeding law.
This is Officer Lacey High of the Bakersfield, California Police Department. Upon stopping this man and questioning him in regards to his actions, Scribner stated, "Why don't you fellows pick on someone else for a while?" Upon talking to this man for a while, we then released him again for the purpose of watching his actions.
Released again, small-time Sam knew he was being given enough rope to hang himself, so he was careful. Too careful. A shining model citizen. Meanwhile, the police laid out pipelines to California's underworld, trying to determine if Sam was involved, who was his companion in crime, who had planned the job, who was the brains.
This Scribner, does he have a pal? An Indian-looking fella? A guy who uses makeup?
They got an answer.
Sure, everybody knows him. Real bright, too. Knows his way around. His name is, Seminole. At least that's what they call him. I don't know his last name. Maybe he ain't got one.
Seminole. Now police went to work looking for Seminole. They didn't find him. But while they were busy searching for Seminole, small-time Sam suddenly disappeared. But he wasn't out of sight for long. On May 5th, 1947, police had news of the disappearing twosome.
Officer Wayne G. Huffman of the Oregon State Police, Oakland, Oregon. Our department received a report of a bank robbery from the E.G. Young Bank at Oakland, Oregon, which was robbed by two gunmen. One flourished a pistol, and the other had a revolver on his hip. Number one subject was described as around 30 years, 5'8", 155 pounds. Number two subject was described as around 60 years, very dark complected, had slanty eyes, the appearance of an Indian, and pockmarked face. Also had the appearance of wearing makeup. There were two customers in the bank, and the robbers gave orders through hand signals. They were carrying a small black bag and obtained approximately $31,000 in loot.
The descriptions of the Oakland hold-up men reached California police, and they identified them as the missing pair, Sam and Seminole. Meanwhile, Oregon set up roadblocks, but the pair had vanished. However, several days later, all alone and innocent-looking, small-time Sam reappeared in Bakersfield.
We could have picked him up, but what was the use? We still had no case. We were waiting for Seminole to come back to town so as we could get identification.
But Seminole was busy elsewhere. He had moved into a sleepy western town named Sweet Home. This time he had a different accomplice.
I am Lois Stenberg, employed as the cashier at the Bank of Sweet Home, Oregon. I was present the morning the bank was robbed, by two gentlemen, an older fellow, about 50, and a young fellow, about 30. They herded myself along with the other employees and customers to the rear of the bank, and then the older gentleman, who was an Indian-type person, ordered us to open the vault, and since it was already open, we didn't know just what to do. We didn't want to just open it. We stalled as long as we could, and he got quite serious about it all, so we opened it. He handed me a sugar sack and ordered Mr. Horton to put the money in the sack. He took it, was going to lock us in there, but in his hurry, he went away without closing the door on us. They made their getaway with $50,500.
Sweet Home authorities, knowing nothing of the Bakersfield, California, and Oakland, Oregon jobs, went to work on their own.
This is Sergeant Larius of the Oregon State Police with headquarters in Albany, Oregon. Immediately after the Sweet Home Bank job was perpetrated, it was necessary to make a thorough search for the getaway car, which we presume was in the immediate vicinity. An all-afternoon search failed to locate this car. It was found, however, the next day on a side road in the vicinity of Foster, Oregon, which is about 3 miles from the bank job. On locating the car, we found it was one that had been stolen in Eugene, Oregon the night before. This car was returned to Sweet Home, where a thorough search for fingerprints was made, without results. However, we had a good composite description of the two bandits, and the search was continued.
Description number 1, obviously Seminole. Description number 2 did not fit small-time Sam. Seminole was working with a new and younger accomplice, a good-looking 30-year-old. But once again, all traces of the men evaporated. Sweet Home Police began detailed checking of every man, woman, and child in town whose activities were doubtful, trying to get a lead. And they got it.
The sheriff became interested in a man known as Joseph Berry Bishop, an ex-convict.
Mike Southard, Sheriff of Lynn County, Albany, Oregon. I received a letter from the Sheriff of Oklahoma asking me to investigate a Bishop family who had just recently arrived here and located in a government housing project in Sweet Home. Deputy Sheriff Miller and myself searched the place and found a large family, apparently no means of support, and they were living well. There's 9 boys in the family, and 7 of them we learned later were ex-convicts. We checked very closely, but didn't find any stolen stuff. And at that time, we took a statement from Joe Berry Bishop. He claimed to me that he were playing poker and was making his money that way. But we didn't believe it because he wasn't a poker type. Later, the Sweet Home Bank was robbed. We were called about 1:30, I believe. My deputy, George Miller, and myself went up there. We went to the bank and attempted to talk with the FBI in Mansfield. He was very busy checking bill numbers and getting things ready, and I was very suspicious of Joe Berry that time, so I went across the street to a pool room and picked him up and brought him over and talked to him. Did not arrest him, but questioned him. The description of the robbers didn't fit Joe Berry Bishop, but we suspected him being the finger man because of all this money being spent. A finger man is one who plans the job but doesn't actually participate in the job. Joe Berry, living in Sweet Home, naturally he knew the bank, the setup, and he was placed in a pool room diagonally across the street where he could, if he desired, watch the operation. The next morning, when Officer Mansfield was less busy, we gave him a detailed description of all that we had in our notebooks in regarding to Joe Berry Bishop.
This is Howard I. Bobbitt, formerly agent in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation at Portland, Oregon. Investigation of this case showed that Joe Berry Bishop was a very logical suspect among 4 or 5 other suspects. Surveillance maintained upon Joe disclosed that he had bought a truck in which he gave about 99 $10 bills in series. This was the first lead that indicated that Bishop had an undisclosed sum of money which might possibly tie him into the Sweet Home Bank robbery. This led to his arrest in Oklahoma. At that time, money was found in the back end of Joe Berry Bishop's car. Other monies were recovered from this bank robbery, some of them from a steering wheel in another car, Another batch of money was recovered from a jar which had been buried upon a farm in Oklahoma, and still a third was recovered from a fruit jar which had been suspended under the seat in a chick sales in one of the Oklahoma farms. Joe Barry Bishop was brought from Oklahoma to Portland, Oregon, and at that time he was interrogated by agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He, in the hopes of reducing his sentence before the federal court, gave information which implicated Sam Scribner, Henry Clay Tollett, and Henry Clay Tollett's illegitimate son, Henry Clay Green.
Joe Barry Bishop, wise in the ways of the court, had given police the information they were waiting for. He put the finger on the slatty-eyed makeup artist who posed as an Indian. Seminole's real name was Henry Clay Tolettr.
Henry Clay Tolettr was the brains. Small-time Sam was strictly an employee. And as for Henry Clay Green, Tollett's son, well, crime just came natural in the family.
Now the gang was identified. Identification was one thing. Finding them was another. Police began backtracking on Tolettr, looking for his present whereabouts through his past.
It was easy enough checking up on his past. It was all in the police files. Way back in 1923, he got caught for, of all things, cattle rustling. Spent 2 years in the pen for that. Then he went into the big time with the armed robbery of 2 Oklahoma banks. He went back to jail in 1936 with a 30-year rap, and he found a home in the pen. And a hobby. He learned to use theatrical makeup. Nobody thought he'd get out, but 16 years later, this cookie had a good behavior record which gets the eye of the parole board. All of a sudden, he's out.
And back in business.
We thought we knew everything about the guy except his whereabouts. Then we had a shocker.
A 14-year-old girl called the state police. She wanted protection. She said her husband was beating her and she was afraid. The state police turned the case over to the county probation department.
This is Mrs. Kathleen White, Deputy Probation Officer of Tulare County, located in Visalia, California. I received a call that a child bride was being mistreated and abused and beaten by her husband. I visited in the home of the parents where the child was then staying. I learned that Claudia was only 14 years of age and that she had met this 54-year-old man through friends of hers who had induced her to go to Las Vegas for the purpose of marrying. She was married and returned to Bakersfield, California with her husband, where she was kept prisoner for 2 or 3 months or until this escape. I learned that the name of this man was Henry Clay Tollett, also known as Seminole.
55-year-old Henry Clay Tolettr, ex-con, bank heist artist, wanted for 3 big jobs, was the husband of a 14-year-old almost woman, the husband of a child. Now probation authorities went to work, and according to our reconstruction of the facts, they learned...
Claudia comes from a plenty poor family. The kid met Seminole at a party. He fell for her. She was kind of pretty in a baby way. Well, he filled her full of alcohol and took her to Las Vegas, where he married her.
Yeah, he beat her up a lot, for kicks. Some of the gang he went with beat her up, too. Then he took her to his sister's house. When he was away on a business call, the sister used to babysit his wife.
Claudia tried to beat it 12 times, but one of Tollett's friends always brought her back. Once he threatened to swing her around by her heels and crack her skull if she didn't stay home. Of course, she was scared. But scared or not, she finally got loose.
Tulare County now filed a warrant for Tolettr on 2 counts of statutory rape on behalf of his child bride.
Then the important information came through. A hot tip on Seminole's hideout in California.
This is Lieutenant Ernest Fisher of the Kern County Sheriff's Office, located in Bakersfield, California. Accompanied by Deputy Sheriff Merle Stoops and city police officers, we proceeded to a residence approximately 6 miles west of Bakersfield. The city police department officers covered the front door, while Deputy Stoops and I covered the rear. Lieutenant Greer rapped on the front door. A man answered. Lieutenant Greer called, "Seminole, I would like to talk to you." The man come to the door, and the city officers rushed him with their guns drawn. Tollett jumped back by his bed, where he had a grip containing 3 loaded revolvers. He had no chance to get a gun from the grip. I asked Tollett if he wished to make a statement at this time. He says, "Yes, I want a lawyer." As Detectives High, Toll, and myself were leaving the Tollett residence to go to the Beardsley Dance Hall to pick up Sam Scribner, I told Deputy Sheriff Stoops to search Tollett and the premises.
This is Deputy Sheriff Merrill Stoops. On making a search of Tolett's person, we found, concealed in his shorts, a Bull Durham bag, which contained over $100 in cash, which was tied to the lower extremities. We then took him to headquarters.
This is Lieutenant Fisher of the Sheriff's Department again. We entered the Beardsley Dance Hall, where my informant had told me Sam Scribner would be that evening, and immediately located Sam Scribner near the rear of the dance hall. My informant was sitting next to him, passed out drunk. Rather than to give Scribner a chance to pull a gun or flee, we attracted all of our attention to the orchestra. We walked back towards the rear of the dance hall, and as we got even with Scribner, I whirled, grabbed him, and immediately placed the handcuffs on him. This embarrassed Scribner very much. He kept saying over and over, "Fisher, what did I ever do to you to make you embarrass me in front of a lot of people this way?"
Now, embarrassed small-time Sam was arrested and taken into custody with his big-time pal, Seminole Tolettr. Once again, witnesses were called in. Now that both armed robbers were in custody, the witnesses talked.
That's the Indian-looking fella.
Sure, now I remember the other one.
Yeah, but he looked different that day.
There was only one outstanding member of the gang left, Seminole's son, Henry Clay Green.
They picked him up near Woodsville, Oklahoma. He was living with his wife, hiding out with friends.
The roundup of the West Coast gang complete, the courts went to work.
Fingerman Joe Barry Bishop turned state's evidence. He received a sentence of 2.5 years.
Son Henry Clay Green was sentenced to 6 years and 4 months for his part in the Sweet Home job.
Small-time Sam Scribner was sentenced to 2 concurrent terms of 20 years apiece for both his California and Oregon convictions.
As for Henry Clay Tolettr, alias Seminole, the brains of the mob, he received 2 25-year sentences to run concurrently at the federal penitentiary at McNeil Island.
Here again is Walter McGraw.
So finally, Seminole was sent up. Henry Clay Tolettr was jailed in one of the toughest penitentiaries of this country, a federal pen where every day is a special day for safety measures.
Seminole immediately got attention because of good behavior. Was that guy good? Wings sprouted from his shoulders. He had a halo. He said he was practicing for another life.
And he was.
There was a big storm at McNeil Island, a regular hurricane. Everyone thought the pen was going to blow away. The guards were plenty busy with the weather. So Tolettr, with the help of a couple of friends, got himself bolted into a case of furniture. You know, the kind that's made in a prison and shipped out for federal office use. Well, Tolettr was shipped out with 3 waste paper baskets and a filing cabinet.
On November 22nd, 1949, Henry Clay Tolettr left McNeil Island in a special trunk to Washington. But somewhere along the way, he melted into the night, right out of the crate to freedom.
An alarm was sounded. First the state of Washington, then Oregon, and then the entire Southwest. Half a dozen tips came in, but no payoff. Henry Clay Tolettr has been named in bank jobs in New Mexico, San Francisco, Chicago, and New York. But leads, as of this moment, they have none. It is not our function here to determine the guilt or innocence of a man, nor do we intend to. But according to the facts you've heard tonight, and or other pertinent material, Henry Clay Tolettr is wanted.
Here again is Walter McGraw.
You can help find Henry Clay Tolettr. Remember, you, the listener, have already run up an impressive record with the apprehension of 3 of the 9 fugitives we've brought to your attention. But to bring Tolettr to justice, you must be informed of all the facts. What does he look like? How does he dress? What are his habits? These we will give you, so stand by. How can you recognize him? Listen, and listen carefully.
This is E.A. Walls, Chief of Detectives, Bakersfield, California. Wanted, Henry Clay Tolettr, age 55, height 5 foot 9 inches, weight 180 pounds, hair gray, eyes brown, complexion dark, cut scar below corner of right eye, tattoos, Henry Goldie Clay, black cat and number 13 tattooed on left calf, walks with slouch.
Now back to Walter McGraw in New York.
If you should see Henry Clay Tolettr, do not approach him on the street. Call your own local police department or the FBI. Give them the fullest possible information. Now, to help you, the voice of the underworld.
Make no mistake about it. This Henry Clay Tolettr is some operator. Don't think this guy is a dope, because he ain't a dope. He's a very smart guy. He learned how to smear his kisser with makeup when he was in McAllister Penitentiary. He learned every trick of the trade. But this baby has got one weakness. He's crazy about California. He loves the weather. He loves the climate, and he loves the broads. You'd think a guy like this, if he's so smart, would hit someplace where it snows once in a while. But this baby has got a fix on California. So if you want to grab this guy, he's in and out of that place, like Bakersfield, practically every month. And if somebody can spot him who knows makeup, they're going to pick this boy up.
If you have no other way of seeing a picture of Henry Clay Tolettr, go to your local post office. A poster with his picture and description is on the wall. Study that face.
Henry Clay Tolettr is 55 years old, height 5 feet 8.5 inches. A native of Arkansas whose speech is flavored with an Okie drawl. He's squat, heavy-set. Weight between 180 and 200 pounds. His hair, normally gray, is frequently shoe-polished black. A makeup artist, usually disguised as an Indian, he walks with a slouch.
Henry Clay Tolettr is one of the top 10 fugitives in this country today. No easy job to trap. He's fast and smart. He plans a bank job like a businessman plans a campaign. But you can stop him. You can put him where he belongs. Right now, I have information that he's in California, probably not too far from Bakersfield. He's depending on his makeup to hide his identity. But Tolettr, like many another fugitive, is a heavy drinker. He forgets himself. So bartenders, waitresses, restaurant owners, this is your case. California, watch out. Tolettr's out there. You can bring him in. Now, this is Walter McGraw saying, there's no time like now to wipe out crime.
Be with us again next week when you will hear the actual people give their eyewitness accounts of the tattooed man with a double identity. Wanted. Wanted for armed robbery.
All material heard tonight was factual. From the record, real names were used. No one was protected. Tonight's report was written by P.L. Mayer. Music was directed by Morris Momorsky. The narrator was Fred Collins. Wanted was supervised for NBC by Joel Hamill and produced and directed by Walter McGraw. Meet Charlie Wilde, Sunday, September 24th on NBC.